The United Kingdom is a country with a lot of history when it comes to development in science and technology. It is where a lot of inventions and discoveries that have been very important for humanity were first created or discovered. We'll present you with some of the developments throughout history that have led to the United Kingdom to become one of the world leaders, past and present, in a variety of fields of science and technology. With that said, let's start.
This thing doesn't work.
Hey guys, is it not working?
Oh, it's not working.
I have an idea. What if we turn this device into a device to send text messages?
That sounds right, but how will we send messages over wires?
Well, here's my plan. We can assign a code to each letter in Word, and then we simply just press the corresponding buttons to send a text message.
That sounds nice. We can call this the text phone.
Well, apparently these children of today do not know how to explain historical events. I will explain them myself. I, along with my friend Thomas Watson, began to experiment with sound transmission machines, but it was not until March 10th, 1876, for the first time I said the famous sentence, "Mr. Watson, come here. I need you." That moment was considered the invention of the telephone because through an electric wire I could transmit the human voice. After this event, I applied for my patent. We will now continue with my old friend Charles Darwin and his theory of natural selection.
Yes, old friend, we'll see what they have for us.
Hey Charles, what are you doing here with all this buzz?
Hi Sophie, I'm in the middle of a research.
That sounds interesting. What is it about?
Well, I'm working on a theory called evolution, and I suggest this please exchange over time through a process called natural selection.
Natural selection? What is that?
Well, it is a process by which favorable characteristics are passed down from generation to generation, and less favorable ones tend to disappear. This leads to the adaptation to the species on the environment over time.
That sounds incredibly important. How did you come up with this idea?
Well, I spent years collecting data of animals and plants. That's all.
Ha 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 ha. That was a good one. They gave a brief explanation of how I developed my theories, but I think I can help them supplement their information. During my voyage on the HMS Beagle, I was amazed by the diversity of life. Observing adaptations in different places, I wondered why. Inspired by Malthus, I developed the idea of natural selection. Variations useful in the struggle for survival are passed on to the next generations, shaping evolution. Finally, in 1859, I published The Origin of Species to share my theory with the world, marking a milestone in biology. Now we will continue with Thomson's discovery of the electron. Good luck, guys.
This is a nightmare, Lily. I have researched for weeks and I found nothing in these ray tubes.
Oh, JJ, relax. Have you tried thinking of them as chocolates? You can find surprises inside.
Chocolates, what if it works in the science?
You see, when you choose a chocolate, you don't know what filling is in it until you bite into it. It can be nuts, it can be caramel, or it can be just something totally unexpected.
You're right, Lily. You may be looking for the unexpected. I will looking for most certain. I finally found it. Something's running on the atom.
He succeeded in discovering the electron through a series of contribution and experiments. The cathode ray chamber was an experiment that he performed in 1897. This was an experiment in which he used a cathode ray tube, which was a vacuum-sealed glass tube with electrodes at the ends and an anode and a cathode. By applying a voltage across the tube, he observed a beam of rays moving from the cathode to the anode. He observed that the beams could be deflected by electric and magnetic fields, indicating that they were composed of negatively charged particles.
Lovely job, but I can explain it better. In the early 20th century, when I, Joseph John Thomson, was investigating the properties of cathode rays in my laboratory at Cambridge University, I came across an intriguing mystery. Cathode rays were streams of particles moving from cathode to anode inside a vacuum tube, and there was evidence that they were composed of subatomic particles. Through a series of experiments, I used magnetic and electric fields to deflect the cathode rays and measure their charge-to-mass ratio. This led me to the conclusion that these particles were smaller than atoms and had a negative electric charge. I called them corpuscles at the time, but they later became known as electrons. My discovery of the electron was revolutionary and laid the foundation for the modern understanding of atomic structure. I showed that atoms were not indivisible, as was believed at the time, but were composed of smaller, negatively charged particles. This fundamentally changed atomic theory and opened the door to further developments in physics and chemistry. My research on the electron led to my receiving the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1906, and my model of the atom, known as the Sultana pudding model, was an important milestone in the history of science. My work laid the foundations for modern atomic theory and subatomic particle physics.
Thank you very much, Thompson, for explaining how you discovered the electron. Now we will continue with the discovery of the structure of the DNA.
At a time when science was advancing rapidly, scientist Francis Crick was obsessed with solving the riddle of the structure of DNA. Francis spent countless hours in his lab, researching and doing experiments, but the riddle of DNA seemed to elude him.
I'm not getting anywhere.
You could have anyone you want. Why wish you wouldn't be with me? I'm nothing special.
One eternity later.
One day, while he was deep in thought, he had a brilliant idea.
Finally! What if DNA could be a double helix with rungs made up of a base pairs?
He shared his idea with James Watson, and together they developed a model of the structure of the DNA based on this vision.
You did it.
James, I got it.
All the time, you forget to meet others.
In 1953, Francis Crick, along with his collaborator James Watson, unraveled the riddle of the structure of the DNA, a breakthrough that changed biology forever. Using experimental X-ray diffraction data provided by Rosalind Franklin and Maurice Wilkins, Crick and Watson developed a bold model. They imagined the DNA as a double helix. Now let's start with the last of our films. It talks about the creation or discovery of the penicillin. Enjoy it.
Three days later.
Winston, come here quickly. Something happened to a little body.
What just happened? It looks like it surprised us with a bacteria-free zone.
This is amazing. You know what? We could, I don't know, free the world of infection. In honor of our little body, we could call it penicillin.
Penicillin. Much more scientific than body mod. Well done, Alex.
Weeks later, after investigating the sample, they saw its potential and they showed it to the world as a new invention.
Now, we are making history.
Penicillin was discovered in 1928, when Alexander noticed that a colony of bacteria had been destroyed by a fungus called penicillinum, which marked the beginning of antibiotics. After doing research, he decided to show the world his discovery so that the government will focus on them to produce in mass. Well guys, this concludes our film about inventions and discoveries around the world. I hope you enjoy it, and we will see you next time. Thank you.